Alright guys, welcome to episode 2 of this tying series. Last episode we tied orange and black Buford. Today we're tying a walleye pattern. This is probably one of my favorite patterns to tie. It's a great pattern. It represents many different forage species, mainly a walleye, but this can also look like a smallmouth and juvenile carp in the right situations. It's going to be tied up on a 5/0 Gamakatsu, as well with paired up with a stinger in the back. Lead eyes in the front, spun deer hair, a lot of red hackles in there to kind of give it more of a bleeding imitation, and a little bit of more bulk. And yeah, this is one of my favorite patterns to tie. We're gonna go through some of the materials we're using today. Some brown feathers, anything will do. You don't really need them too long. This pattern isn't meant to be a long and skinny pattern, kind of a 10 to 13 inch fly. We got some red hackles here. You don't need red hackles, this is just what I have. You could simply just use red feathers if you have them, or you could just not even put red feathers in them, but I like to add them in, sometimes for like a little hot spot. Flash, this is probably some of my favorite flash to use. It's a gold, black, and like silver blend. It looks really nice in the water if you're trying to imitate like a dark colored walleye. Some more brown feathers, some yellow Schlappen. We're gonna be using some of this body hair for the head, for spinning it around the eyes. This helps out a lot. Some yellow bucktail as well as brown bucktail. So let's get started. All right, so we're just starting off with a good thread base here. Get yourself a pair of scissors that aren't as dull as mine. Holy cow. Yeah, that's no good. Alright, so I like to start out putting with the yellow feathers. Schlappen, I'd say, the longer ones. It really doesn't matter what ones you use. This fly, more or less, is going to be more brown and bright yellow to kind of counteract with the brightness of the yellow. Kind of make it more of a darker colored. That's kind of what you're going for. So these two feathers look pretty good. Nice and long and symmetrical. Cut those off. There. Obviously you can edit to see how long you want it, but I roughly probably want it about right about there. So I'll peel back a couple of these feathers. Okay. And feathers in, make sure they all line up. Clip that out the way just so it's not. Wrap that back there, make sure it's nice and secure. Okay, so we got two little hackles going, or Schlappen I should say. Next we're going to come in with some brown feathers. They don't need to be wicked long. Just enough to kind of build that taper. Flip them the other way. Make sure your thread wraps are nice and tight. Don't want those feathers slipping out of there. Okay, so that's what we have so far out the back of this. Now, I'm gonna come in here with, go back and pack a brown feather somewhere. Over here. A couple of these guys. Tie these in the same way. That's how the back half, but the feathers is gonna be. Now, I want to put in a little bit of flash. Flash is, zip tie's getting loose on here. I don't nearly like to tie this much in the back, so we're gonna trim this up a little bit. I'm going to tie it about 50-50. We should spread that around. Take your time, see what you want. Wrap back on top of that. Okay, that's how that's looking. We're gonna put our first clump of bucktail on. Use some of this brown bucktail. You don't need a wicked long strand for the back here, just because I'm trying to build that taper. So that's why I'm using kind of a smaller chunk. Comb all that back. Wrap that in front there. There we go. Our first strand of bucktail. So how we're gonna do this is we're gonna go, for every 2 clumps of bucktail, we're gonna go 1 clump of yellow. So we're gonna put in another clump of bucktail. I personally am just going 2 clumps for every 1 clump of yellow, just because I kind of want to dim out that bright yellow, make it a little bit more darker. Get all that locked in there. That's how it's looking so far. Now we're gonna put in our bleeding hackles. A handful of them picked out right here. off that butt. I like to do a couple. I like to do all my bleeding hackles horizontal or parallel with the hook shank here. Once we get up to here, we're going to tie 2 of them on the bottom as well. I like putting some on the bottom just because more than likely your fly is going to be underneath or on top of the musky, especially less in a river in the summer when you're fishing more fast water. So I kind of like if they can see that bottom underneath there and some flash. That usually does the trick for me. At least I think it does. I'm gonna come in here with some yellow bucktail. Just nice and secure. Very important to push back all those fibers so you don't wrap up on them. There. Yeah. Probably go one more clump of bucktail to finish this off. I'm trying to find some stuff that's not too terribly long. A couple loose wraps. Wrap up on top of this. Get that nice and secure. Here's we're going to add our other 2 bleeding hackles. I like to cockeye these just a little bit down. Not all the way on the bottom, just kind of. Just like so. Okay. That's kind of how the fly is looking right now. A little bit of flash out the back. And I usually put flash right here, but we have some right here. It's not too big of a deal, to be honest. I'm gonna finish on half hitch this. And then we're gonna put some super glue on there to lock in those feathers in this thread. Utensils and super glue. Lock in all that thread. Feathers. Should be good. Don't need a whole lot of super glue. Okay. So that's kind of what the back half of this fly is going to look like. Let that sit there and dry. Preferably, usually with my dowels, I like to tie my front hook at least a 6/0. That's just my personal opinion. I like having a pretty big hook for doubles. But today we're going to be using this 5/0, which has worked pretty well for me the past season. Right there. You don't want to tie too far back there. Once that starts to bend right there, then your thread's just going to start slipping. So it's good to stop right before it starts to bend, in my opinion. Okay, so here's where we're going to put our wire in here. As stated before, this is 55-pound, Not Too Kinky Wire. I don't know, I've been using this for the past 2 seasons and I haven't had a problem with it. You could use American fishing wire, Rio Bite wire, all that stuff. I just feel with nylon coated stuff sometimes if you do get a fish, scratch that up sometimes and kind of make it a pain, but it doesn't kink up. So here we're gonna put our wire in. I like to tie it sideways on the side of the hook and then on top, but there's all sorts of other videos for that. Really no right way to do it. So now I'm getting real close and really tight thread wraps to really lock in that wire. I go about 3-4 times back on this. Okay. So we're gonna come in here with 2 beads. Any beads work. These beads are actually made for making crawler harnesses. Bought these at Cabela's, so any craft beads really will work. There's really no fancy bead that'll work for articulating flies. Anything will work in my opinion. So we're gonna cross that through, thread the wire. Can't seem to get it. There you go. Thread the wire back through those beads, creating that loop, and therefore the beads make it so it doesn't all get all messed up. So kind of see how you want to do it before you start tying it in. I could get some loose wraps on there just to get it to stay for a second before I start doing anything crazy. I didn't like how that looked, so we're gonna cut that. Oh, that wasn't working. And now we're gonna cinch this in. One of the more important parts of the fly, just because if you get a fish on the back hook and the wire pops out, that's a lost fish more likely, and lose the back half of the fly, and there's a fly hanging in a musky's mouth, which is not good. So if we can try and take our time and make this nice and neat and durable, then it'll be good for later on. Okay. Now I'm going to hit this up with a little bit of super glue to really lock that in. Do a couple wraps on top of that just to really bind that in. Get that all nice and spread out on there. Okay. So that's that for putting that on. Okay, so we just got done tying on our wire for the articulation. If you want, you can have like 3 beads to make this hook kind of go back more, or simply you could just use a different hook with a barb, a longer shank, therefore the barb would be back a little farther. I personally like these stinger hooks. I've had great hookup percentages on them. I've been using them for the past 2 seasons and no problems so far. But yeah, you could do 3 beads to make this offset to go back farther, but I just don't like having a really big space between this material and then this material, because there's about, I don't know, 1/2 inch of room there to 1/4 inch. So yeah, that's just my opinion. Okay, we're gonna come in here with some brown bucktail. Cinch that in. How you feel. Push that back. Now this part is the one part where I'll do a thread dam. Just because I really want to control how I want that bucktail to sit. I don't want it to sit too far like that, and I don't want it to sit too far like vertically. So this is the one time where I do the thread dam, and then oftentimes I will not put the bucktail to where I want it quite yet. I'll leave it, and then the next strand of bucktail will push that back just enough to where I want it. Therefore, sometimes if you put it too much or like right where you want it, then you put your other thing of bucktail on, and it sometimes will push back even more. That's just my opinion sometimes. So we're going to tie in our second strand on our front hook. Some good yellow. Three, 1, 2, 3. Okay. It's looking pretty good so far. Okay, now we're gonna add in some flash right here. Need to get a new zip tie on that, I guess. Yeah, roughly about that much. A lot of guys like to put a lot of flash. I am not one of those people. I like to put just enough to represent like the lateral line and scales and all that, but I don't like to overdo it. I know a lot of guys for pike out in Europe do that, which, you know, if it works, it works. That's just my personal. That's looking pretty good so far. Adds a little bit more length on top. Looking real nice. Okay. Oh, some bucktail. Oh. Also, before I forget, lead eyes. Forgot about lead eyes. That's what we'll be using that deer body hair for. Yeah, I tied last. I forgot to do this too. So I personally like to put my eyes on beforehand, just because sometimes you think you have enough room to get it all, and sometimes you don't have enough room to get it to where you want it. Ooh, I'm gonna redo that. Bring that right up there. You can tie your lead eyes beforehand if you want, or as you're doing it. I just like to do it like this. Any light eyes will work. Just make sure that they're proportional to like your head size or how big the fly is. So like these are extra large tri-painted lead dumbbell eyes. The pseudo eyes, those are probably my favorite lead eyes to use on a musky fly, just because they kind of have a little bit more like a fishy eye look to them than these basic lead ones, but these will do. I'm going to super glue these down as well. I like to get everywhere with the super glue. I want those lead eyes to start swiveling, you know, after a day of casting in a couple weeks. Wrap back on top of there. Really secure that down. Okay. Now we got that done. Come in here with another round of brown bucktail. That's also the one problem about doing them beforehand, is you can't get your push tool really in there per se. Okay, here's where we're going to add some more bleeding hackles. Let's pick a couple out. About 4 of them. the top. Get that under feather out of there too. And we'll do 2 on the bottom side-ish. This is almost kind of the trickier part of the fly, putting all these little hackles. They're worth it though. Probably trim off those butts if you can get your scissors in there. Okay, so that's how this is looking so far. Right, so we just put in our hackles. Now we're gonna put in some brown bucktail, just because the head of this is gonna be all yellow, and I don't really want to make the head super yellow if I put another strand of this, or another clump of this yellow bucktail on. So I'm gonna put another clump of this brown bucktail. This is gonna be the last clump before we start working on the head. This is a pretty important part. Make sure it's really hard to move that bucktail around. You got those stupid lead eyes there, so do what you can. If you got to do it at the top and then switch over to the bottom, put a clump down there or something. By all means, do what you got to do. But usually you can kind of work it around and manipulate it to what you see fit. Now this I'm not going to wrap on top of it because I kind of want, like I said earlier, that around a little bit. I don't want that bucktail to be too far back because I'm building the head. You kind of want it to come like this, and then like that. I don't want the head to be like this and then all of a sudden it's just tapered, just like that. So I'm gonna leave it up a little bit, and when I spin that deer hair on there, I'll push that hair back just enough to where it's where I want it. Okay, so we got pretty even distribution of bucktail there. At this point in time in the fly, a hair clip would be pretty nice for getting all that out of the way. We don't have one, so we're not gonna do that. Yeah, so we're just gonna spin this like we normally would. I will put a little bit of red bucktail right there to imitate a hot spot, as well as the lip. or just kind of a little, the mouth, you could say. I know walleyes don't really, not like a sucker where their mouth's on the bottom, but it's a hot spot, and it'll, you know, might imitate more of a sucker too. Give it a little bit more versatility. So yeah, here's where the fun part begins. Building the head. So when I got lead eyes like this, I do a top chunk and a bottom chunk of bucktail. Just because you aren't going to be able to wrap and spin it all the way around backed up against this bucktail and a lead eye. So just to make it easier on yourself, just do a top and bottom clump. That's what I've felt has just worked out for me. Just come in here like this, like so. Like that. Just like that. There we go. I'm gonna wrap that back up in front. There. So here's where it gets also interesting. The hardest part is basically right here. When you're, which is the two hardest parts about this fly. It's wrapping the deer hair between this bucktail piece and the lead eyes, and then right after to get it nice and tight there, because we don't want any space there when we're done with this. So it's really crucial to kind of get that nice and tight in there. Like I said, I like to go 2 strands or 1 clump up top, 1 clump on the bottom, just to kind of even that all out. Oh, no, I'm not liking that. So the reason why I took that off is because I didn't make what I was spinning long enough. So I spun it right about there. And I want to spin it right about there because I want all that fiber to match with how tall that is. Otherwise, when you're trimming, you're going to start trimming, you know, all this other stuff, and then all of a sudden you're not going to have any hair left. That way, if you have it all uniform, you can really make it look nice. You don't have to worry about that. Yeah, that's about what I want. All right, it's about there. Make sure not to trap any fibers. Okay. Yeah, spinning deer hair, once you get the hang of it, it's really fun to do. It's a pain in the butt to start learning it at first. Like it took me forever to actually learn how to tie a good Buford head, and even the one in the last video wasn't even that good of a head, but yeah, it just takes time and using the right material. You know, you can use the butt sections of this stuff, but this stuff works a lot better, a lot easier to spin, and you end up trimming about 75% of that, of the longer stuff. Why waste it on the head when you can use it on the body, you know? That's just my opinion. So now we're gonna have a nice, clean head. That's why I like to put my lead eyes in first, because then sometimes if I can't get them to where I want them, or they won't cinch down where I want them, so oftentimes those lead eyes will be too far up, and you'll be at that stage where you can put in another clump of bucktail to spin, but it's gonna crowd the hook eye. So that way I like to put it on when nothing's around it, really cinch it down and get to where I want it. it's looking mighty fine as is. Okay, so we're gonna half hitch this. I know Minnesota fly tool makes an excellent tool for musky fly work. Their push tool is just, it's insane, but pen will also work. I mean, fly tool will probably be a lot easier, but so far I haven't had a problem with just using a pen. I'll put super glue on there at the end once I'm done trimming. Jeez. There we go. Okay. So that is what the fly is going to look like. Now we're going to start trimming this. Don't trim too much. Can't get it back. It's going to take a little bit to get used to trimming. You know, it took me quite a while to get kind of a routine down. I like using longer scissors just because if you use shorter scissors, you can use it's cutting all like that. This is just one nice. I like to have those eyes showing. Really, you can make the head whatever's like, you know, size you want. The more you take off, the more it's gonna, well, I shouldn't say more it's gonna sink, but the more it's not gonna be prone to, it's gonna sink a little faster just because that bucktail up there is just so tightly packed, almost like a bass popper, that it's gonna wanna oftentimes float. So, make sure you're looking at it, keeping track of what needs to be cut on here. So I'm looking at it right now. And a little bit on this side needs to be taken out. You could probably still fish it like this. Obviously you still can, but I don't know. I just like to make my stuff look pretty nice. So yeah, it's looking pretty good so far. It's that spun deer hair head, almost in the walleye pattern. And now that I'm thinking, I just forgot to put the hot spot up here, but it doesn't really matter. Yeah, so that is episode 2 of this fly tying series. Thanks for watching.